Hi, everyone. Welcome to Umatta Consultant Podcast. This is Rejoice. If today is your first time joining us on our show, please make sure you subscribe to our channel, especially our Spotify channel, and also on our YouTube channels as well. Today, we have the special privilege of speaking with Jackie. She is the author of Hush Money and also her newest book that she has recently released, Surviving in a Toxic Workplace. I would love for her to introduce herself as she sees fit, and we'll dive right into further questions. Jackie, the mic is yours, please.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here and I'm super excited to talk about our newest book. So rather than go into, an introduction about who I am and what I do, I will actually let my new book do that for me. Okay, so I'm going to be looking a little bit this way because these eyes are not as young as they used to be. Um, but I'm going to just take you through a little bit about me and why I do this work, okay? So if anybody knows me, I started my career, as an entrepreneur with the series of books called Hush Money. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hush Money, and that's going to tell you about me, okay? So I never knew the cost of being Black in corporate America, the price I would pay with my dignity and fundamental rights as a human being, just to have a job that wasn't in a low income sector, a job that had a satisfying career path and gave me and my family a chance to live the American dream. But if I knew then what I know now, maybe I would have done things differently before taking the job that traumatized and nearly destroyed me. Maybe I would have bleached my dark skin to make it lighter, or removed my long dookie braids to straighten my hair. Maybe I would have bought blue contacts to hide my brown eyes and got a nose job with the butt reduction too. You know, do all the things I shoulda, woulda, coulda done to look less like me and more like them, just to fit into a mold I had no part in creating. No, I know me. And even if I could go back in time to that fateful day that changed my life in the worst way, I wouldn't change a thing, because I'm the strong, beautiful Black woman God created me to be. Dark skin, dookie braids, big butt and all. I'm Jackie Abram. My daughters and I are the international best-selling and award-winning authors of Hush Money. I've been featured in Forbes, on Spectrum News, and on ABC Affiliate, among others. Yes. I began my career in higher education, filled with ambition, hope, and determination. I was a pillar of confidence, a 6-foot-tall Janet Jackson lookalike, with a smile that could sink 1,000 ships and a walk that could literally stop traffic. I was an Amazon, my own Wonder Woman, with legs for miles and a warrior spirit burning deep inside me. It was that fire, that passion, that drive that fueled my rise up the ladder of success. And rise I did. I earned promotion after promotion, my work ethic and performance speaking louder than words ever could. And I climbed the ladder of success, not because of favoritism or privilege, but because of the exceptional way I performed my job. But as I continued to reach new heights in my career, a change in leadership caused someone in the organization who wasn't there when I was hired to notice me. Someone who was not only in a higher position than mine, but who was also a racist, who didn't believe I deserved the position I held because I was a Black woman. When this leader began targeting me, she used the power, influence, and authority of her position to inspire others in the organization to conspire against me. Before long, I wasn't dealing with one leader targeting me anymore. I was now dealing with people, a whole lot of people, who were all working together to pull the rug from under me, causing me and that ladder I was climbing up on to come crashing down. Sadly, this was just the beginning. In the years that followed, I ran from company to company, trying to find a place where I could not only survive working while Black, but also thrive. But here's the problem. I ran from this company over here because I was Black, and when I ran to the next company, guess what? I was still Black. And although the companies were different, the playbook each toxic leader in each company used was the same. Their coordinated efforts were devastatingly effective and repeatedly left me jobless, homeless, and struggling as a single mom to provide for my girls. As I'm sure you can imagine, they also left me broken and traumatized to such a degree I may never fully recover. Many Black women speak about the psychological trauma caused by toxic workplaces, and I'm no exception because the damage is real and the trauma is real. But for me specifically, the physical trauma, hair loss, and 100 pounds of weight gain was even more devastating and took a toll on me that I never imagined in a million years I would possibly endure. At 6 feet tall, I never blended in anywhere. I always stood out. But standing out as a 6 foot tall Janet Jackson lookalike was a lot different than standing out as a 6 foot tall version of Medea. And I just cannot tell you, I cannot even begin to describe the many, 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 many hurtful things that were said about me and even to me. One of the milder examples was when a group of Latina colleagues were talking in a group and they saw me turn that corner and head their way. They switched from speaking English to Spanish. And as I walked by, one of them called out Jabba the Hutt in Spanish. Okay. And so that's what initially brought me to doing this work. I had everything every company said that they wanted. I was skilled. I had the credentials. I looked good on paper. I communicated effectively across the board. But I couldn't keep a job, and I kept finding myself repeatedly homeless. And being homeless changes you. And so every time you find yourself back in that situation and not knowing how you're going to provide for your girls, it eats away at your confidence and your dignity and your strength. And before long, I had sunk so far into the shadows that I wanted to end it all because I was just tired. But the thing that I had that a lot of other Black women who experienced this don't have is that I actually knew how to fight. And I was exceptional at fighting back. And I got multiple 6-figure settlements from all of those toxic jobs. I never walked away from a single toxic job empty handed because I knew how to fight. But the problem is, if you wait until that company pushes you out of your job and now you're living off of the savings that you've accumulated, well, because you can't keep a job and that savings runs out, now you've got nothing left and you find yourself homeless while you're fighting back. And so, yes, I would get those 6-figure settlements, but in between time, I'm homeless because I've waited until they pushed me out of my job. So I started doing this work to teach people that you don't have to wait until they force you out of your job to start fighting back. There are things you can do to stop them while you're still getting that paycheck so you don't ever have to end up homeless like I did. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jackie, for telling your inspiring story. I had a little bit of goosebumps as you're speaking. So touching. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more into this. I want to
Mhm.
understand a little bit more about your inspiration, workplace discrimination. Can you go into a little bit further about telling us how many people don't realize the subtle workplace discrimination and what are some of the hidden signs employees should look out for that you experienced?
Okay. So, this book, our newest book, Surviving in a Toxic Workplace, does a deep dive, okay, into the playbook, okay, because there is a playbook that is being used by all of these toxic leaders in these various companies. And the playbook is always the same. So it doesn't matter if you are the CEO or the custodian. when they target you, okay, they will always inspire others in the organization to conspire with them because they know that two heads are better than one. And they want to not just get you out of your job, they actually want to damage your mental health. And so they need more than themselves to do that. They need a group of people that I call the minions that are helping to put the pressure on you every day so you are constantly under attack. Okay. So here are the signs that you need to look out for. It doesn't matter how long you've been on your position, okay? You could be a new person. You could be someone who's been in your position for 16 years. And things can be going very, very well. But all it takes is a change in leadership, okay? You know, somebody leaves and somebody comes in. And it doesn't even have to be your supervisor. It can be your supervisor's supervisor. But when they start targeting you, it's that change in leadership that can send your career going in the wrong direction, okay? So, how do they do it? How do they get you from hired to fired? Well, as my book shows you, there are warning signs and then there are termination warning signs. And so I actually did a deep case study of my own experience. I wrote the Hush Money books based on what I experienced working in one university. Now, because I did get a lot of hush money from that particular university, they gave me the hush money to buy my silence so I couldn't tell anybody about what happened to me in that organization. And to guarantee that I could never tell anybody, they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, that said, okay, by signing this, we're going to guarantee that you can never tell anybody what you experienced here. And so I took their very big settlement payment. Okay, it was a nice six-figure payment. That was great. And I signed their little NDA, right? But then I still figured out a way to tell the world what happened to me, okay? And I did that by creating a character that I call Ebony, okay? And it's through Ebony's eyes that you get to see and feel and smell my circumstances, what happened to me. And as you're seeing what happened to me, you're getting the warning signs along the way, okay? So, for example, when Ebony, so Ebony's representing me, started working in this university and in this college, she had the most amazing boss that she'd ever had. And she was so excited because he treated her a lot like the father figure she never had, okay? And he took her under his wing, and he was so impressed by the computer skills she had taught herself in a safe house for abused women. And he decided he was going to hire her full time from the temp agency that she was working under. And so when he said he was going to hire her full time, he offered to give her a raise, okay? So a $5,000 raise. Now, Ebony didn't have a Jackie Abram, okay? So she has to figure things out on her own. And one of the biggest mistakes she made was the very first warning that you're getting in this book as you're learning about what happened to Ebony. Ebony let that verbal conversation stay verbal, okay? And here's your first warning. You should never let verbal conversation stay verbal. This was a missed opportunity. Don't let it be a missed opportunity for you. When someone gives you a verbal compliment about your work performance or makes you a promise about your career, never let those verbal conversations stay verbal. You have to turn them into written evidence that you can use to protect yourself if that work is ever called into question or that favorable promise is broken. Now, to ensure that the reader who's reading this book understands what they should do, For every warning that you're getting in the chapter on the things you need to look out for, at the end of that chapter, so there's lots of warnings, as you can see, at the end of that chapter, you're then getting the email template. So you're getting a summary, you're getting the lesson, okay? You're getting what you need to learn from that lesson. Verbal agreements hold no weight. Failing to turn them into written documentation leaves you vulnerable if those promises are broken. And then you get the strategy. The E in email stands for evidence. So this is how you turn that verbal conversation into written evidence using the strategy, and then you get the sample email. Okay. So for every warning, you're getting, this is what Ebony should have done that she didn't do, but you should do. Okay. This is how you get to stay in your job and you're fighting while you're still getting that paycheck. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So another example, so you were asking me what are the things that you should look out for. So this boss went away and Ebony found herself reporting to a nightmare boss, okay? And this boss was Miss Kelly. And Miss Kelly didn't treat Ebony with respect. Miss Kelly didn't like Ebony. She made it very clear from the very beginning that she did not respect, she did not like Ebony, and she made Ebony's life a living hell, okay? One of the things that this toxic leader did was she started removing all of the great duties that Ebony was good at and that she had used to start making a name for herself in this company. And so there are warnings in this book, and then there are termination warnings. When they start removing your duties, that is not just any ordinary warning. That is a termination warning. That means they are prepping you to terminate you within about 30 days, okay?
Gotcha.
So here, in this example, Miss Kelly removed Ebony's core duties and replaced them with menial tasks, a move that should have raised significant red flags. In a toxic workplace, the removal of your duties is part of a calculated strategy to limit your exposure, decrease the value you're bringing to that organization, and make it easier for them to manage you out. So again, for every warning at the end of each chapter, you're getting the strategy, okay? When they remove your duties, how do you deal with that? Well, if you go to the end of the chapter, it's going to tell you for that particular one, and I'll show you here. And this is a big termination warning, by the way. So you have to understand these particular warnings because there are warnings and then there are termination warnings. This is a termination warning. So the lessons. Documenting changes and responsibilities is critical when your role is being diminished. You want to compare your original duties with the current tasks so you can highlight that unfair treatment and protect yourself against claims of underperformance. Okay, so what you're going to use is that original job description, and you're going to use an email to document what's happening to you. But one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make is they write emails that are combative and confrontational, and that allows them to go to the angry Black woman trope,
Right.
okay? And that overshadows what's happening to you. So you want to write these emails wrapped in fluff, okay? So in this particular case, Ebony should have said, Dear Miss Kelly, I wanted to check in and ensure my work in preparing your coffee and running errands is meeting your needs. So she took away all her great computer duties and replaced them with making coffee and running errands.
Wow.
During my time working with Dr. Hall, I managed budgets, prepared meeting minutes, and developed presentations, which allowed me to contribute meaningfully. My computer skills are strong and diversified, and I'd love the opportunity to resume completing this work. under your leadership. So you see what she's doing?
Right.
She's really saying, okay, I used to do these amazing things. Now I'm not. I want to resume doing these amazing things. And then she's making sure she's putting what she's got her doing. If there are any adjustments you'd like to your coffee or areas where I can better support you, let me know. So this is powerful evidence that she's making her coffee. She's no longer doing the duties that her job description says she's supposed to be doing. And this is solid documentation
Right.
that she could use to fight back. Okay.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Very practical
Mhm.
too. I like how your book
Yes.
gives the warnings, steps you could take, and it gives examples. I think that's really clever. Very nice.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
And so that's what makes this book so powerful.
Mhm.
There are other signs that people need to understand are warning signs, but they're termination warning signs. If you start being excluded from meetings
Mm,
and excluded from emails and excluded from information being shared with other people on the team or other peers, that is a termination warning. They're going to terminate you within 30 days. If they put you on a PIP or a corrective action or a verbal warning, and these other things are happening, they're going to terminate you within 30 days. If your environment is so toxic and you are so traumatized that you need to go away for FMLA leave or medical leave, while you're gone, you give them the quiet time to finish setting you up. So when you return, they're waiting for you and you will find yourself terminated within 30 days. So those are all termination warning signs, okay? And there's many more.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Hmm.
How,
Hmm.
Jackie, how does systematic racism in the workplace impact employees' mental health and career growth? I know you talked about it as you were introducing your book. How
Hmm.
does systematic racism in the workplace impact employees' overall mental health and their career growth?
So, like I told you earlier, the toxic leaders have gotten smarter, okay? And they're using a playbook that is very effective in damaging your mental health and getting you out of your position. One of the ways that they do that, remember I told you they inspire others to conspire with them? If you are a manager, they will find someone on your team, okay, to start complaining about you, accusing you of not training them or accusing you of harassing them. They will find an employee on your team to monitor your comings and goings, what time you arrive, what time you leave, what time you go on lunch, what time you're gone for the day. They will also inspire HR. Okay, so HR is really supposed to be an advocate for the employees, right? But in a toxic workplace, HR's role is not to protect you from your toxic leaders. It's to protect your toxic leaders from you. And so they will turn a blind eye to everything that you're experiencing, and they will invalidate whatever you tell them is happening to you. They will say, that's not happening. They will gaslight you. And so you know that you're experiencing something, but the people around you are telling you, you need to develop thicker skin. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Right? And so these are the things that are happening. You've got no one listening to you. You've got no one who can identify with what you're experiencing. In a lot of cases, you are the only Black woman, okay, in a leadership position or on this team. And so as you're trying to explain what's happening to you, they believe you're making excuses, okay? In addition to that, they're making things extra difficult for you. So instead of you being able to succeed in your job, they're withholding information that you need to know in order to be successful in your
Hmm.
job. They're excluding you from information to put you in the dark so that you can appear incompetent even though you're not. And with me, they also gave me equipment, okay, that was not effective for me to do my job. I tell people to this day, I am pretty sure they found the computer system that they gave me to do my job in an archaeological dig somewhere.
Oh boy.
Yes, because it was older than dirt,
Wow.
okay? And it was freezing all day long. So while you're struggling to get your work done because your equipment doesn't work, or you don't have access to the share drive you need, or you haven't been trained properly, while you're doing all of these things, they're piling a lot of extra work on your back and turning you into something that I call the black workforce, okay? Where they have intentionally classified your position as salary exempt, even though your position does not meet the threshold and the requirements to be salary exempt. But they do that so that they can pile a mountain of work on your back and have you doing the work of two, three, sometimes four people, but they don't have to pay you overtime for that work because they've made you salary exempt. Okay, they've misclassified you on purpose. So now you're being overburdened with a mountain of work. You're not able to maintain any kind of work life balance because you're working way more than the traditional 40 hours a week. You're struggling because you haven't been trained properly and you don't know fully how to do your job. And you've got people from all directions that are constantly attacking you. One of the other strategies in this playbook is something that I call black on black.
Mm.
So you've got leaders that are targeting you, but they don't want you to accuse them of being racist. So they will find someone on your team, okay, or someone in another department who is Black like you, who can put the pressure on you. And if you've ever heard me speak, I've said some of my most horrifying leaders were actually Black women
Mm.
who upheld a white supremacist ideology, okay? And so you have that dynamic going on as well. And that's how they damage your mental health because you feel like you are in a war zone
Mm.
and every day is bringing a new battle. Okay.
I see. Thank you so much for explaining that, Jackie. What advice would you have for individuals who experience microaggression at work?
So, there are microaggressions and then there are things that are designed to derail your career. Okay. So, when you're talking about a microaggression, let me give you an example because this is one that I hear all the time. Okay. And I actually talk about it here in my book. So, in one particular case, so remember Ebony, she was reporting to Miss Kelly after her wonderful boss left. And Miss Kelly was an absolute nightmare, okay? But Miss Kelly ended up demoting her and transferring her to a different department. So now she's been demoted. Her salary's been decreased. She's now in a new department and she's now got a new manager. And she's thinking, well, I'm still making more money than I made in other jobs and I can get away from Miss Kelly. So now there's nothing standing in my way. Okay. And so that's where we come into a chapter that I call the mask. Okay. So she finds herself reporting to a man by the name of Malcolm Webb, okay? And Malcolm Webb was a horrible, horrible man, okay? He was not just a covert racist, but he was an overt racist too. He just didn't care, okay? And so at first, Ebony thought he was a nice man, okay? And when he introduced himself to the team, he called a team meeting and he wanted everyone to introduce themselves. When Ebony spoke, he said, wow, you speak so articulate. Okay. All right. So that was a microaggression. Okay. And then he asked her how she learned to speak. Okay. So articulate. And so he was implying that, wow, how'd you learn to speak so well? Well, basically, what he's saying is it was unusual for Black people to speak so well. And he wanted to know how she learned to speak so well. Now, Ebony didn't realize that this was a microaggression. She actually thought that he was complimenting her, okay? But he wasn't. He was saying, it is unusual for Black people to be able to communicate so effectively. And so when you have a situation like that, if you let it go unchecked, it causes a problem because then they continue to do these sort of things, okay? But you cannot become confrontational because, again, one of their go-tos in toxic environments is, you're unapproachable, you're too aggressive, you're too assertive, you're too direct, you're the angry Black woman, okay? And so you never want to give that to them. So you want to approach it from, again, a professional and a calm perspective. And so you could, and you want to do this in writing, by the way, because you never let verbal conversations stay verbal. So what she should have done was sent him an email and say, it was really great meeting you and learning about your career and being able to share, about mine. I did want to let you know that when you asked me how I learned to speak so articulately, it made me feel, that maybe you're not used to Black people being able to communicate as well as I do. And so I just wanted to let you know that I found it offensive, and that was why. Okay. So you've got to document it because you need that documentation to show that this was a start of other things that began to occur.
Right. Makes sense. Very much. Yes.
This book is called Surviving in a Toxic Workplace. It is the most powerful book we've written so far, and I think you can get a feel for why. Um, it's just our best work. The Hush Money series got us started doing this work. I have a consultancy. I help many, 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 many Black women all around the world actually fight back and get those six-figure settlements, okay? And I'm really good at what I do. But this book goes into the strategies. It really goes into their playbook that they're using to get you out of your career. And it goes deep into my strategy. How did I repeatedly get multiple six-figure settlements? And now in my consultancy, how are we repeatedly getting so many six-figure settlements for perfect strangers in not just the US, but in the UK, Canada, France? I mean, we have clients all over the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Jackie. So, if any of
Mhm.
our listeners would like to reach out or learn more,
Okay.
what's the best way they can do that?
Okay, very good. I will give you my phone number. You are welcome to text me or call me. That number is 719-582-6803. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I practically live on LinkedIn because 99% of my clients come from LinkedIn, okay? So you can always find me on LinkedIn, and if you message me, you are guaranteed to receive a response, or you can call me.
Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Jackie, for your time today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for telling your story. I know
Mhm.
it was something that was traumatizing for you, but you continue to live on and inspire
Yes.
others through the books you've written and the strategies that you're helping women.
Yes.
And
And these books are available on Amazon. I am self published, doing everything on my own.
wow,
And these books, yes, these books are available on Amazon. Okay.
awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And
Mhm.
everyone, thank you for listening in today.
Thank you.